The first sound I heard through my new hearing aids wasn't the birds outside the window or the ticking of the clock. It was the crystal clear voice of my husband, recorded hours earlier, telling another woman he couldn't wait for me to go completely deaf. He said it would make everything so much easier. My world, which had been slowly fading into a muffled blur, snapped into sharp, terrifying focus. I was sitting on our plush velvet sofa, the one David insisted we buy because it was more fitting for a woman of my talent. The hearing aids, sleek and silver, were nestled in my ears. They were his 32nd birthday gift to me, presented in a small, elegant box with a flourish and a speech about how he'd always support me and my music, no matter what. He'd kissed my forehead, his lips warm against my skin, and whispered, "I'll never let you face this alone, Lena." Liar. My fingers trembled as I held my phone, the screen displaying the hearing aids app. It had a feature I hadn't even known existed until a few moments ago: automatic cloud backup of ambient sound. According to the user manual, it was for soundscape journaling, a way for users to recall and analyze specific auditory environments. A thoughtful feature, I'd mused. But when I'd synced the devices, a dozen audio files, preloaded and timestamped, had appeared. They were labeled with dates stretching back 2 weeks, all recorded before the box was ever opened. They had been active, in David's possession, long before they were gifted to me. Curiosity, a cold, sharp needle, had pricked at me. I'd pressed play on the most recent file, recorded that very morning while I was at my audiology appointment. The sound quality was extraordinary. I could hear the soft rustle of his suit jacket, the clink of a coffee mug, and then his voice. Not the gentle, encouraging tone he used with me, but one laced with a smug, dismissive cruelty. "She's at the doctor's getting the final verdict," he'd said. The background noise was faint, the distinct hum of his car's Bluetooth system. "It's profound hearing loss, Jess. The specialist is going to confirm it. She'll be functionally deaf within the year." There was a woman's laugh on the other end, a tinny sound through the speaker, yet it was a laugh I recognized. Jessica. His high school sweetheart, the one he'd sworn was just a friend. The one who always looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt at company parties. "Oh, you poor thing," she'd cooed, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Having to take care of a deaf musician. How will you ever cope?" "I'm a saint, I tell you," David had chuckled, a low, guttural sound that made my stomach clench. "But seriously, it's the perfect setup. Once she's completely dependent, the incompetence angle will be a slam dunk. Her father's inheritance is all tied up in trusts that I can't touch unless she's enabled to manage her own affairs." He sighed, a long, theatrical sound. "I just can't wait for the silence. No more goddamn piano scales, no more complaining about the tinnitus. Just peace." The recording ended. I sat there, the silence in our opulent living room suddenly heavier, more suffocating than any hearing loss. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, a sound I hadn't properly heard in months, was now a loud, rhythmic countdown to the implosion of my life. For 12 years, David had been my rock. We met in college. I was a nervous music conservatory student. He was a charismatic business major who'd found himself at one of my recitals by mistake. He'd told me my playing had moved him to tears. He became my biggest fan, my manager, my husband. He handled the contracts, the bookings, the finances. He'd encouraged me to quit the orchestra and pursue a solo career, telling me I was too brilliant to be just one violin in a sea of strings. I thought it was belief in my talent. Now I saw it for what it was: isolation. My hearing loss had started subtly. A high-pitched ringing in my right ear, a struggle to distinguish conversations in a crowded room. I'd blamed it on years of practice, on the pressure of performing. David had been so supportive. He'd researched specialists, held my hand during tests, and reassured me that my worth wasn't defined by my ears. He'd even started learning sign language, a gesture that had made me weep with gratitude. All of it a lie. A meticulously crafted performance designed to lull me into a state of helpless dependency. He wasn't supporting me, he was investing in my decline. The hearing aids weren't a gift of love, they were a tool of surveillance, a miscalculation on his part that would become his undoing. A cold, hard fury I hadn't known I possessed began to crystallize in my chest, displacing the shock and heartbreak. He thought I was weak. He thought my hearing loss was a weakness he could exploit. He was about to find out how wrong he was. My ears might be failing, but my mind was sharper than ever. I took a deep, shuddering breath and swiped to the next recording. And the next. For an hour, I sat there and listened to the soundtrack of my own betrayal. I heard them discussing my mood swings, which were actually my moments of grief over losing the one thing that defined me. I heard them laughing about how I'd misheard a waiter at a restaurant last week. I heard them planning a weekend getaway to a place we were supposed to go for our anniversary, all while he was supposedly at a business conference. The most damning part was the conversation about my father's money. My dad had been a shrewd investor, leaving me a substantial inheritance I'd barely touched, content with the income from my music career and income David managed. The lawyer said the clause is ironclad, David's recorded voice explained to Jessica. It specifies that if she's medically incapacitated and unable to make sound financial decisions, control reverts to her spouse. Her audiologist's report is the first nail in the coffin. A few well-placed comments to our friends about her being confused and forgetful, and the picture paints itself. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was methodically, cruelly, trying to erase me, to turn me into a ghost in my own life while he and his lover danced on the ashes. The front door clicked open. Lena. Honey, I'm home. I quickly locked my phone and wiped the tears from my face, my heart hammering against my ribs. I shoved the phone between the sofa cushions. I had to be deaf. Not just hard of hearing, but profoundly, completely deaf. My performance had to be flawless. David walked in, a grocery bag in one hand and that sickeningly compassionate smile on his face. How are they? He asked, gesturing to the hearing aids in my ears. Can you hear me? He exaggerated his lip movements, speaking slowly and loudly as if addressing a child. I looked at him, my expression a carefully crafted mask of confused frustration. I shook my head, letting a single, perfect tear roll down my cheek. It's no good, David, I signed, my hands moving with the grace of a pianist. I made sure to mumble the words nonsensically at the same time, a trick I'd seen other deaf people do. It's just noise. I can't make out your words. His face fell, but I saw a flicker of triumph in his eyes before he could hide it. He'd expected this. He'd probably hoped for it. It fit his narrative perfectly. The state-of-the-art hearing aids, a testament to his generosity, had failed. My condition was worse than anyone thought. Poor, tragic Alina. Poor, sainted David. He rushed to my side and knelt before me, taking my hands in his. His touch felt like spiders on my skin. Don't worry, my love, he said, his voice a clear, resonant baritone that I now heard with perfect clarity. We'll get through this. I'm here. We'll try a different brand. We'll do whatever it takes. I let myself collapse into his arms, sobbing. But my tears weren't for the loss of my hearing or the death of my marriage. They were tears of rage. And as I cried into the shoulder of the man who was plotting to destroy me, I made a silent vow. He wanted silence. I would give him silence. I would be a ghost in my own home, a phantom he thought he could control. And I would listen. I would gather every single piece of evidence, every whispered lie, every contemptuous laugh. And when the time was right, I wouldn't just leave him. I would orchestrate a crescendo of ruin so complete, it would be the last thing he ever saw coming. The next few weeks were a master class in deception. I moved through my life as if wrapped in cotton wool, my face a permanent study in quiet, frustrated sadness. To David, I was a ship lost in the fog. I'd mishear him constantly, forcing him to write things down on a small whiteboard he'd bought, a gesture of support that made me want to scream. "Dinner at 8?" He'd write. I'd nod blankly. Meanwhile, the hearing aids, synced to a burner phone I'd hidden in my piano bench, were my new ears. I wore them from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. The ambient recording feature was a godsend. I'd leave my phone accidentally on the kitchen counter when I went to take a bath, or on the passenger seat of the car when I ran into a store. David, believing I was deaf to the world, grew careless. He spoke to Jessica constantly. I learned the rhythm of their affair, the secret language of their betrayal. He'd call her on his drive to work, his voice a low, intimate murmur. "I miss you," he breathed into his headset, while I was supposedly meditating in the garden, listening to every syllable from the phone tucked into my waistband. Living with her is like living with a ghost. She just drifts around the house, looking pathetic. It's draining. Just think of the money, baby, Jessica's voice would crackle back. Think of us, on a beach in the Maldives, with not a care in the world. I started documenting everything. I created a secure cloud account, uploading the audio files with dates, times, and transcripts. I took screenshots of their texts, which David was too arrogant to delete from his synced laptop. I even placed a tiny GPS tracker bought online and disguised as a cufflink in his gym bag. His late nights at the office invariably led him to a single location, Jessica's downtown apartment. My music, the supposed source of my identity, became my cover. I spent hours at my grand piano, my back to the room. David saw it as me clinging to the last vestiges of my old life. He'd watch me from the doorway with that fake pity in his eyes as my fingers flew across the keys. He couldn't know that I was playing with a fury I'd never felt before, channeling my rage into Rachmaninoff and my sorrow into Chopin. And he also couldn't know that the phone, propped up on the music stand, was recording his every move. One evening, he came home with a stack of papers. He laid them on the kitchen table and wrote on the whiteboard, "Legal documents, honey. Just some updates to our estate plan. Standard stuff." I looked at him, my eyes wide and trusting. I could hear his heart beating, a little faster than usual. He was nervous. I picked up the pen and wrote back, "Do I need to sign something?" "Yes, just here and here," he wrote, pointing to several signature lines. I scanned the documents. My legal knowledge was limited, but I didn't need to be a lawyer to understand the dense paragraphs about power of attorney and medical directives. It was the legal framework for his takeover. He was giving himself complete control over my assets and medical decisions, effective immediately, citing my debilitating condition. He'd even had a doctor, a friend of his, I presumed, co-sign a letter attesting to my diminished cognitive state due to sensory deprivation. It was breathtakingly audacious. I looked up at him, my perfect husband, his face a mask of concern. He was watching me so closely. I let my shoulders slump in defeat, picked up the pen, and signed every single page. I saw the subtle release of tension in his jaw, the almost imperceptible smile that touched his lips. He thought he'd won. He thought I was signing away my life. What he didn't know was that the entire scene was being filmed. The day before, I'd replaced the smart speaker on the kitchen counter with a high-end nanny cam. The angle was perfect, capturing his face, the documents, and my coerced signature. The audio from my hearing aids would sync up perfectly with the video, creating a damning, undeniable record of his fraud. The final piece of my plan fell into place a week later. David announced he was hosting a small dinner party. Just a few friends and business associates, he'd written on the whiteboard. "It'll be good for you to get out of your shell a bit." I knew exactly what it was. It was the next stage of his campaign, parading his confused, deaf wife in front of people whose opinions mattered, laying the groundwork for his incompetence claim. Jessica would be there, of course. He'd told me she was coming with a new boyfriend, a convenient fiction to allow her presence. The night of the party, I allowed him to dress me like a doll. I wore a simple black dress, elegant and understated. I let him put my hair up, his fingers lingering on my neck. As he clasped a diamond necklace around my throat, a necklace my father had given me, I could hear his quiet murmur, meant for his ears only. Just a little longer. Downstairs, the house filled with people. I moved through the crowd on David's arm, smiling vaguely, nodding at people I couldn't hear, my eyes conveying a deep, impenetrable sadness. I saw Jessica cross the room, watching me with a smug, triumphant smirk. She was hanging on the arm of some man David had clearly paid to be her date for the evening. I played my part. I misunderstood a question from one of David's business partners, causing a moment of awkward silence. I accidentally spilled a glass of water, my hand trembling. David was right there every time, swooping in with a patient smile and a reassuring touch, the very picture of a devoted husband. She has good days and bad days, I heard him whisper to someone behind me. It's been so hard on her. The main course was served. Everyone was seated around our long, polished dining table. David, at the head of the table, tapped his glass for attention. Here it comes, I thought. The main performance. I'd just like to say a few words, he began, his voice smooth and confident. First, thank you all for coming. It means the world to me to have your support during this challenging time. He gestured to me, his face a perfect portrait of loving sorrow. As many of you know, my beautiful wife, Elena, is facing a battle that takes more courage than I can imagine. Her gift, her music, has been stolen by silence. But her spirit remains as strong as ever. The room was filled with murmurs of sympathy. Jessica was looking at him with adoring eyes. I wanted to vomit. She inspires me every day, he continued, his voice thick with fake emotion. And in honor of her strength, and to ensure she has the best care and support imaginable, we've recently made some arrangements to secure her future. He was laying the groundwork, normalizing the idea that he was in control. He raised his glass. To my wife, Elena, the strongest woman I know. The guests raised their glasses. To Elena. I watched them all, these people who were witnessing my public execution. I kept my face placid, my eyes downcast. Then, as they took a sip of their wine, I reached into the small clutch purse in my lap. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled out my phone and a small connector cable. I reached over to the portable Bose speaker we used for background music, which sat on the sideboard just behind me. I plugged the phone in. On the screen was the audio file from that first, fateful morning. The one where he told Jessica he couldn't wait for me to go deaf. I looked directly at David. His smile faltered, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. He opened his mouth to ask what I was doing. He was too late. I pressed play. His own voice, crystal clear and amplified by the speaker, filled the sudden, dead silence of the dining room. She's at the doctor's getting the final verdict. It's profound hearing loss, Jess. The specialist is going to confirm it. She'll be functionally deaf within the year. Every head at the table swiveled towards David. His face had gone completely white, the color draining from it as if a plug had been pulled. Jessica froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Jessica's recorded laughter, tinny and cruel, echoed through the room. Oh, you poor thing. Having to take care of a deaf musician. How will you ever cope? I'm a saint, I tell you, his recorded voice boomed. But seriously, it's the perfect setup. Once she's completely dependent, the incompetence angle will be a slam dunk. Her father's inheritance is all tied up in trusts that I can't touch unless she's able to manage her own affairs. Someone gasped. One of his business partners stared, open-mouthed. I let the recording play, every damning word. The plan to have me declared incompetent. The mockery of my tinnitus. The chilling final line: I just can't wait for the silence. When the recording finished, the silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier and more profound than anything my hearing loss could have ever produced. Every eye was on David, whose face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. I stood up, my chair scraping softly against the hardwood floor. I looked down the length of the table at my husband. He was staring at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish, but no sound was coming out. "The thing is, David," I said, my voice perfectly clear, perfectly steady, resonating in the shocked stillness. "These hearing aids you bought me? They're magnificent. They work perfectly." I reached up and slowly, deliberately, removed them from my ears, placing them on the table. "I heard every word," I said, my gaze shifting to Jessica, whose face had crumpled into a mess of terror and disbelief. "Every call, every text, every whispered plan to ruin my life and steal my family's money." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Then I turned my attention to his business partners, to our friends, to the people whose respect he had cultivated so carefully. "This man," I said, pointing a trembling but resolute finger at David, "is not a devoted husband. He is a fraud, a thief, and an adulterer. He conspired to have me declared legally incompetent for financial gain. And I have recordings of it all." I picked up my phone again. "I also have video of him coercing me into signing over power of attorney 2 weeks ago. And GPS data tracking his car to her apartment." I nodded at Jessica. "On at least a dozen occasions he was supposedly working late. My lawyer has copies of everything. So does the district attorney's office. And a reporter from the New York Times." David finally found his voice. "Elena, no, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand completely." I cut him off, my voice dropping to an icy whisper. "You wanted silence. You wanted me to be a ghost. Well, you've got your wish. From this moment on, you are dead to me." I looked around the table one last time, at the shocked and horrified faces of our guests. My work here was done. I had not just exposed him, I had annihilated him in front of the very people whose validation he craved. His reputation, his career, his future, all of it, gone in the space of a 3-minute audio clip. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the dining room, my head held high. I didn't look back. I could feel his eyes on me, but for the first time, his gaze had no power. I walked out the front door of the house he had planned to steal from me and into the cool night air. I don't know what happened after I left. I imagine the dinner party ended rather abruptly. I had a bag packed and a car waiting a block away. That night, I stayed in a hotel, and the next morning, my lawyer filed for divorce, along with a restraining order and multiple civil suits for fraud and emotional distress. The story did, in fact, hit the papers. David became a pariah overnight. His company fired him. His friends abandoned him. Jessica, I heard, left town. The legal battle will be messy, I'm sure. He'll try to fight, to lie, to spin some story about me being a vindictive, unstable woman. But I have the truth on my side. I have it all on tape. Sometimes, I still sit at my piano and I play. The tinnitus is still there, a constant, high-pitched whine. My hearing will continue to fade. But I'm not afraid anymore. He thought my hearing loss was a weakness, something that would make me small and helpless. He was wrong. It became my armor. It became my weapon. He wanted to trap me in a world of silence, but all he did was teach me how to listen. And now, for the first time in a long time, I can finally hear the music again. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.